Blake Hinsey, Formula One performance engineer, former Performance One engineer. Thank you for joining us. What insights have you learned from analyzing the first half of this Formula One season?
I think one of the things that stands out to me immediately is we always talk about the front of the field. Let's step back a little bit. The midfield is so insanely close and it's so chaotic this season. If we look at teams like Haas's performance, you even have teams with Williams who obviously don't have a very strong car, but every now and then you see Alex Albon getting a great result, even showing up in Q3. It goes to show you the midfield is so close and there's so much chaos going on. Teams have to be on top of their tire preparation in terms of their outlap and traffic management. And so many races, or at least qualifying battles, have been decided by this. And I feel like that's one of those narratives that we've left on the sideline a little bit. And it's exciting to see. And I think, yes, Verstappen is running away with a lot of, the pole positions and the race wins, but take that out and it's an insanely tight field with lots of chaos, which I'm really enjoying.
You predicted this when we spoke to each other in Milton Keynes before the season. And you mentioned that McLaren was planning to step up. Well, they did. What changes did McLaren do to get this improvement?
Well, I think I'm working on a video right now, deep diving into this. And as you said, Aston looked like, the tied second best team. It was kind of like Aston and Mercedes. And now it's like, okay, McLaren, the regulations that changed at the end of 2022, they increased the floor edge height by 15 mil. And that seems to have set them off because McLaren from the end of last year have gone backwards. Like Lando's average finishing position last year was P8. And if we take this year, their average finishing position is something like P13 up until Austria. In terms of performance at the start of the season, they were just slow in a straight line. And come to, let's say, Spain, it looks like they started to be able to use some of the downforce of the car and take advantage of that. So they still weren't particularly fast in a straight line, but at least their deficit in high-speed corners was not as much. And then from Austria, their apex speeds and corner exits have improved massively in terms of medium-speed corners and low-speed corners, which Hungary was really surprising for me because when you listen to the comments from Lando in the press and like Andrea Stella and stuff in technical, and even Zach Brown in technical interviews, they still have balance problems with the car. Like the car is not sorted, and Lando was quoted as saying the car is only 30% fixed. So if they can resolve those balance issues and looking deeper at that and what that looks like in terms of cornering performance, they have a lot coming. They have a lot coming, I think, or at least there's the opportunity, and I think it's clear to them.
Are they even able to fix that problem in the second half of the season?
I think the balance issues were persistent from last year into this year. And I think the regulation change kind of sidetracked them a little bit in terms of focusing on that. They just had to go back into potentially it's like, oh no, we've lost a lot of downforce. We need to find this downforce. Never mind characteristics or balance. But the idea of, let's say, your low speed corner entry, that's really difficult and takes a lot of time to go through the digital world in CFD, come up with a concept that should add performance in this area, then go into the wind tunnel, make sure that works and makes sense, and then take it to the track. I mean, we're talking about a really huge feedback loop in terms of how much time it takes to go CFD, wind tunnel, track, and then understand what happened at the track and then apply that to the next loop of development. I don't know, front wings, how many floors can you bring in this cost cap era? You don't have that many opportunities, which means your hit rate has to be extremely high. And when you don't know exactly where you're aiming sometimes, or you don't know where the shot's going to land, that can make it quite challenging. And you see teams that have, car balance problems. Sometimes it takes them several seasons to fix.
The Red Bull is a combination of things, like a good driver, a good team, good car. Checo seems to be struggling a lot, especially during qualifying. Do you have any insights into the possible reasons behind his challenges?
Yeah, I think one of the things I will say, because I worked with Checo a lot at Force India. I was his performance engineer for a year and a bit at Force India, and I've worked with him a lot in the simulator. Like, he's always been a fast driver, but it seems to me when, for example, let's take a qualifying session, a dry qualifying session, go out, do a run on a medium, easy banker into Q2, soft, another soft in Q3, and you're through. We've not had very many of those qualifying sessions lately, have we? We've had mixed track conditions, rain, wet, dry, wet sessions. I think he likes the build-up. and the the chipping away at a target and understanding. But when the track, like I think he's having a little bit more difficult time adapting than Max is to variable conditions. Let's say that you don't get quite the right preparation on your outlap, or you've got traffic that seems to completely sidetrack him. And I know the team that are working with him, the guys that are working with him are awesome. I don't feel like they're leaving much on the table. They're doing everything they can to help push him in the right direction. So I really, other than that, I really don't know. Like, his race pace is reasonable. It's not quite at Max's level. He's, keeping his nose clean when he's, had a poor qualifying. He's coming through the pack, not taking too many risks. I mean, with, Piastri around turn 3 in Hungary, that was interesting, a little bit risky, but he's got the pace and aggression. He just needs to find out what works for him and getting through those unpredictable sessions.
You know him well. Is this easing him up from inside, not being there? What do you think?
I really don't know, because Checo, when I worked with him, was always a super level guy. There would be moments of, excitement or disappointment in the moment, and then after that, he's back to just a calm and collected and thoughtful person. He's like, okay, he'll take the information on board and go away with it. So he doesn't share too much of, he doesn't wear it on his sleeve, so to speak. So it's really difficult for me to say, because we don't see any of that. And my experience with him is a super calm and collected person. So it's gotta be frustrating him, for sure. I mean, he's in the best car and the best team. The only difficult thing for him is the reference that he has is probably one of the best cars or best drivers on the grid.
So when is the team happy? Like, Verstappen is destroying all his teammates. Can Ricciardo step back in and be the second driver?
I don't know, honestly. And that's a question for Daniel, because Daniel, obviously, these racing drivers are so single-minded and their goal is to win. But from Red Bull's point of view, you don't want two number one drivers. I don't think you want two number one drivers. You want a clear one and a clear two. And you're every weekend, you're rocking up and you're on the podium, the top two steps. And if one of the drivers has a misfortune, the other one steps up. And that's it. Like, that's what you want. You don't want two drivers. Take, for example, the Ferrari drivers lately. Let me overtake him. Come on, I'm faster than him right now. You don't want to be babysitting the entire race. And that's those drivers advocating for themselves, which they should do. But do you want to deal with that all the time? Or them taking each other out? Mark Webber, Sebastian Vettel, Max and Daniel and Baku, on and on. Those are two top dogs fighting for the top step. You just lose.
You want Hamilton and Bottas. That's a perfect situation, I guess, right?
He's fantastic. And Bottas was, Bottas had his moments, and he was an awesome second driver as well.
So the factory is going to close down during the summer break. Which teams are likely going to benefit the most from the second part of the season?
I think I've got 2 question marks, or 3 really, and it's the teams in my head right now are Aston, Mercedes, and McLaren. That is the interesting narrative for the rest of the season now. The Red Bull is done. That story's over. But these 3 teams, like, I'm not even thinking. Maybe I'm just negative, but I'm not even seeing Ferrari in this mix right now. But if you had those 4 teams in that'd be amazing. Who's going to do the best? It's really difficult to say. I think McLaren are finding some advantages, and the question for me is, Aston Martin going to be able to U-turn and go back, because they've been falling off massively, very anonymous. Can they come back to challenging for that final step on the podium? I can't tell. From what I can see, I can't predict it. What I can hope for is a much more interesting, second and third step battle on the podium.